Everyone, Becky DeGrossa here. I'm the founder of counselingwise.com, and we specialize in smart web marketing for therapists. If you haven't been here before on one of our webinars, this will be a treat for you. Today, what we're going to do is talk about Google AdWords and basically how it's helping therapists reignite their practices. All right, that's what we're going to be diving into today. So before I get started, I want to check in to make sure that we're connecting. Okay, so if you can hear me, please type in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me. And if you can't, say what the heck is going on or whatever. Okay, I want to make sure that you can hear and see the charts before I dive in and get started. There's a little delay always with Google Hangouts. That's the way it goes. Can you hear me? Waiting for confirmation. Maybe it's a little bit longer delay this time. All right, great. I'm all good, good. Okay, thanks. I'm hearing feedback here from you guys that you can hear me, so that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to get going here. Now, one thing I wanted to say about questions during the teaching part of this segment is that I'm not going to take the questions during the teaching part, but if you can type them into the chat as they come up for you, then at the end I'll go ahead and read all those questions and answer them in the order that they were submitted. So if you have a question, don't wait till the end. Go ahead and put it in, and that way we won't deal with this delay, and I'll just wrap around and answer all your questions as we go. Okay, so please do that. That'll be great. All right. So, what are we going to discuss today? Well, this is kind of interesting. There's a big change that I'm seeing for private practice websites, okay? And this is pretty interesting. It's something that I think there's been a delayed effect with. And I'm seeing this change now. And what I want to do is I want to tell you how to tell if you have this issue or not, so that you'll know what to watch for. I want to tell you what you can do if you're affected by this, and also how to go about it the right way, okay? So what has changed? Well, one of the things I'm seeing is that more and more therapists who had previously successful websites are coming to us now, okay? So this is really kind of interesting. It used to be, you know, a couple of years ago when we were building websites for therapists, the therapists that would come would be typically the folks who didn't have a website, like they're brand new in practice, and they would come, they needed a website, or folks who maybe had been in practice for a long time, but they didn't have a website yet. They weren't as tech savvy, maybe, they were intimidated by technology, and they were like, okay, finally I have to get a website. Everyone has one, I might as well get one too. So those were the folks that were coming to us, okay? And the folks that had websites up that were kind of like the early adopters, if you will, you know, the more tech-savvy therapists, the more go-getter types, they were ranking really well, okay? They were ranking really well. They were getting a lot of traffic. They were getting a lot of clients. They were fine. And we didn't hear from them very much. But what I'm noticing in the last, I would say, year is that what was working before is no longer working. And it seemed to start trickling in like a year ago. And now I seem to be getting more and more. So you know, for me personally, it's kind of a multi-pronged thing, right? Because one is that the therapists who are coming, who used to be really tech savvy and be successful online, they know what that was like and they totally get it, so they're all ears and they're ready to get going. Okay, so that's great for me because they're a sophisticated client. They're not brand new. It's not a brand new website for them. On the other hand, it's really strange to see this happening because they used to be successful and they're not anymore. Okay, so what we're seeing is that there's definitely more competition than there used to be. Okay, I mean, if you're a therapist without a website, you are, you know, it used to be that there were a lot of you that didn't have websites. Now more and more folks have them, and so it's just becoming really competitive. And the other thing that has happened is the Google algorithm changes have really impacted rankings a lot, and this is a big factor in what we're seeing now. Okay, so I'm not gonna go into all the details of this, but Panda is an algorithm change that Google rolled out. Actually started rolling it out, I believe, in 2011. Okay, but over time they have refined it and refined it. So this is straight from Google's website, and this is an important thing to understand, a very important thing to understand. They say the goal of many of our ranking changes is to help searchers find sites that provide a great user experience and fulfill their information needs. Okay? To that end, we've launched Panda changes that successfully return higher quality sites in search results. Okay, so this is what it's all about. There's been other changes as well. Penguin, you may have heard of that, but that's mainly penalizing sites that were doing bad SEO, bad search engine optimization. So Panda is really the one that applies to most therapists. Okay, now when they first rolled it out, it was their first attempt. They have been continually rolling it out. Okay, each year Google changes its algorithm 500 to 600 times. That's pretty amazing, right? That's a lot of changes. So they're refining it and they're getting better and better and better. And I think what has happened is that if sites were absolutely horrible, they were knocked out, in 2011, 12, 13. Now it's getting more and more fine-tuned, and what I'm finding is that sites that were okay are now getting knocked out because they just don't have a lot of content and a lot of in-depth content, and that's why I'm seeing mostly these more experienced website owners coming to us now. Okay, so as Panda is being fine-tuned, we're seeing a couple of different things. One, domain age is not as helpful as it was before. So what I mean by that is if you launched a site 7 years ago, you were definitely an early adopter, and your domain age counted a lot in Google's algorithm. Google would say, okay, hey, you've been around a while, we trust you. So this new kid on the block who launches a site, they aren't going to measure up to you because we've already known you for 7 years, we trust you, and we're going to rank you higher. Okay? Well, that's not nearly as helpful as before. It's almost as if they're ignoring domain age and they're really looking at, are you going to provide a high quality experience? Do you have specific content on your site? Is this content in depth? Are you really treating these topics in an in-depth way? And do you have continuous updates on your site? Okay, this seems to have become much, much more important in the algorithm, which is why we're seeing a lot of the 5-page, 6, 7-page sites knocked out and not getting as much traffic as they used to. Okay, so all of this is what drove us to create the Smart Therapy Websites program, period, anyway, right? That's what we do in that program, and most of you have been around to hear about that, and a lot of you have probably already done that program, or you're in that program now, getting a really good site created. So that's what we did to create, to meet these needs, and that's great. However, even when you create a site with high quality content, it takes a bit of time to get it ranked and to get traffic. This is the part that people don't realize. So you do need a high quality site. You need a lot of content. You need to be blogging. You need all these things. But how do you get traffic when it's brand new? All right? It takes a while. Now, if the site is on a new domain, if you've changed your domain, and it doesn't have any age credit, it's going to take longer to get ranked. We can do some things to help that with 301 redirects, and we will do that, especially if your old site wasn't penalized. Okay, if your old site was penalized, we're not going to do a 301 redirect because we don't want to hurt your new site. But if your site is on a new domain, it's going to take longer to rank, and certainly in competitive areas, it's going to take longer to rank. Okay, so let's look at how this works. Success is iterative, all right? So let's imagine that your site is somewhere out there in the search engine results. So somebody finds your site, and this is in this chart. I have your site sitting at position number 5. That is most likely not going to happen. Okay, when you launch a new site, you are not going to be in position 5. You may be on page 5. Okay, you may be on page 5. So let's just Let's just pretend that you're on page 5, because when you first launch, that's the way it goes. But let's imagine that you had some good blog posts, or you're really highly optimized for the search term the person typed in, and it wasn't a big term, right? It wasn't like therapy your city, because that's highly competitive. But maybe somebody typed in, how do I tell if my child is depressed in your area, and you happen to have a blog post on that, and they found your site, okay? So that's what we call a long tail search term. But let's imagine they found your site. There it is, okay? Now, what ends up happening is there's this effect where Google says, well, did they stay on your site, okay? Did this searcher find your site, and did they stay on your site, okay? And then let's imagine that, yes, they stayed on your site. Well, what's going to happen is that Google is then going to bump you up, okay? They're going to say, hey, that was a good performance, okay? They got to your site. They stayed on your site for a while. They didn't just bounce. So we're going to put you up higher so that next time someone will find you sooner, okay? What happens, though, if they came to your site and they didn't stay? They came and it was boring and it was not on point and they couldn't find what they wanted and they just bounced away. Well, then Google says, not such a good result. Let's move you down for that search term. We don't want to rank you highly. We're going to move you down, okay? So this is what happens. And of course this is simplified, right? This is simplified a bit. But this is one of the biggest factors in ranking. All right, and some people call it a buoyancy factor, that if people find your site and they stay, you become lighter and lighter and you bubble up to the top, okay? So this is how it works, and this is why high quality and having people stay on your site longer and longer should be a very big goal for you, all right? So you still need two things, right? You need a high quality site and you need traffic so that people can see it. It doesn't do you any good to do all this work, right, to write specific pages with in-depth content and create a blog and put a lot of blog posts up and all this good stuff and not be found. Now, the blogs will help you get traffic because, again, those are long-tail search terms. So people will find you much more readily if you have a blog going. But you still need traffic, okay? So your site's going to bubble up or sink down over time. And you want as many visitors as you can get because you want to go through that little performance test over and over again. You want someone to come, you want Google to say, did they stay? You want Google to say, yeah, they did stay, we're going to bump you up. And you want that to keep happening. But in the beginning, you won't get that many visitors, okay? You just won't because you haven't written that many blog posts yet, and you just haven't added as much content as you will over time. So that's going to be, it's just going to take a while to get those visitors. You also need to be highly optimized, of course. You need a lot of content. So what can you do? Okay, what can you do in this situation? And we're going to get into the details here. But you know, this is a big question. Well, what we have found and what we've started doing more and more is recommending AdWords. Okay, and AdWords is extremely helpful. Now, you may be skeptical about AdWords, especially if you're in this camp where you had a website up before and it was working great and you never had to use AdWords, right? I hear this all the time. I never had to use it before. Why do I have to use it now? You may also have heard someone else say that AdWords doesn't work. It doesn't work for a lot of people because they do it wrong, okay? And I'll get into all the details of what to do and what not to do, but a lot of people haven't had success with it because they haven't done it correctly. SEO, which is search engine optimization, you may have heard that or social media or networking or whatever brings more traffic and is free. There's actually nothing that's free. It's either your time or your money that you're trading, right? But SEO and these other things, you can do some of them yourselves, or if you get it set up, it can bring traffic without paying per click. So that is a good point, but again, it takes time, okay? You may have heard AdWords is really hard to learn, kind of is, and that it costs too much, okay? Well, that's all relative. It's very relative. We're going to get into the details of that. So today's webinar should help, and my goal is to give you a solid understanding of this of AdWords itself and whether or not you're in the population of people who should be considering it for your practice or not. Okay? This isn't a how-to course because, you know, honestly, it takes years to study AdWords and learn how to do it really well. But before we dive in, let's talk about what AdWords is anyway. So you've all seen this. You may not remember seeing it, or you may not know what it was called, but this is AdWords, okay? So it's at the top. AdWords is at the top of the search results on the left, and AdWords ads are on the right. And so this search is a search for Counseling Boulder. And you can see that there are 3 ads at the top. There's typically 3, and they're denoted by that little yellow ad box. And then on the right, the same thing, okay? And it goes all the way down the page typically. All right, that's where ads show up when you run AdWords. So, as you can see, if you launched a brand new site, let's imagine that this BoulderMarriageCounseling.com was my site. Okay, let's imagine I just launched it. Well, it's probably going to be on page 5 or 10 or something like that, because as you can see, look right here, you see this? There's 3 million search results, 3 million sites in the running for searches for Counseling Boulder. So there's no way with a brand new site that I'm going to rank anywhere near the top because there's 3 million competitors that could be ranked. Okay, so one of the things I could do is I could run Google AdWords and look what happens. I pop right up to the top. All right, now that is a way to get traffic, right? That's a wonderful way to get traffic. It does cost, but you can get traffic that way. So the way it works is in an AdWords campaign, you tell Google, hey, when somebody types in this keyword, like Counseling Boulder, I want to show. Put my ad up for that. And when you put my ad up, go ahead and say, here's my headline, and then show my URL, okay, right here, show my URL, and then put in certain words here, a certain description, a certain selling ad copy, okay? So counseling that works for severe marriage crisis, call today. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting about this is that this guy, Dr. Lindsay, he's basically said, hey, if anyone types in anything to do with counseling, show me, even though I'm a marriage counselor, okay? And so this is an ad that isn't as targeted as you might want, because if he only does couples counseling, we probably wouldn't have him spending all this money on every counseling term. But maybe he wants that, okay? He wants to show up at the top. So anyway, that's how ads work. You tell Google, show me for these terms, and use this copy when you show me, okay? And that's how that happens. Now, in an AdWords campaign, you can specify, as we just said, the keywords for which you want to appear, the headline to use in your ad, the ad copy to use, but you can also do some other really neat things, okay? You can specify the geography in which to display your ad. So if I'm in Boulder, and I think that it's realistic that I'm going to pull traffic from maybe a 30-mile radius of Boulder, I can say, hey, show my ad when anyone within a 30-mile radius of Boulder types in these terms, okay? So I can specify geography. Geography is also really neat. If you're, for instance, we're working with a guy who's in a small town in Canada, and he is in such a small town that he's not going to get a full practice with the folks who are in his town. So he is wanting to reach out to other cities or towns within Canada. Okay, and he's going to do phone or Skype therapy. So we're able to specify geographies for him, and that's great. You're going to do it differently if you're going to see face-to-face folks versus if you're going to do phone therapy. And in a very large city like New York or San Francisco, your geography is going to be pretty small. You may say, hey, only show my ad within 5 or 10 miles of me, because you know that people won't commute. So this is a big factor to consider. You can also specify the time of day to show your ad, okay? And this is really helpful, and we have ways of knowing when the best time is. We can see when you get the most clicks. We can see what works best. And typically we know that people who are up in the middle of the night at like midnight to 5 a.m., they're kind of messed up when they're searching online, and often they don't convert. So we don't show ads that during those times. We don't want to spend your money during that time. It's better to spend your money during the light of day, okay? You can also specify, and this is extremely important, you can also specify the terms you don't want to appear for, okay? And we'll get into that much more. But this is a big, big area where having experience under your belt really pays off. There's most of the campaigns we look at when people do it themselves, or they have Google do it, or they have someone who doesn't know therapy or AdWords really well. Most of those people are spending money on clicks that will never ever convert, like free therapy, okay, or mental health center, you know, lower socioeconomic terms, if you will, and that, you know, you're not going to get a private paid client with that for sure. They're also searching for things like maybe, you know, maybe they just have the term therapy in there or counseling, so they're going to get speech therapy and physical therapy and occupational therapy and all these things that don't apply to what you do. So that is something that you don't want to, that's a trap to not fall into, okay? The other thing that you can specify is how much you want to spend per day. So you're totally in control of your budget. You tell Google, hey, I only want to spend $10 a day or $15 a day or whatever, okay? So you can control that. And then there's many, many more things that you can control, but these are the main things, okay? So what I'm going to cover today in regards to AdWords is why it's the fastest and easiest way to get clients, what you need to have in place before you spend money on AdWords, because this is extremely important too. The biggest mistakes to avoid, perfect scenarios for using AdWords. There's some situations, some therapists with their specialties that it's just like awesome to use AdWords. It's just, you're going to knock the ball out of the park with that. And what niches to avoid with AdWords? There are certain niches that we just tell you, hey, you should not even try to play, okay? And you'll understand why here in a minute. So one thing that I will say, so much for the phone ringing there, is stay until the end, okay? Stay until the end. AdWords is not for everyone, as I will show you. However, if it is for you, you'll be really interested in an offering that I'm going to be making to get you up and running on AdWords, okay? Now, the other thing is there will be a discount for the first 10 therapists who order, okay? So that's why you want to stay until the end. Okay, so we're going to go into something that might look a little intimidating, but this is basically just giving you an industry experience of something that is called the SEO slog. And again, if you don't know what SEO is search engine optimization. And that is what that's what you do to get ranked in Google, okay? It's optimizing your site so that you can get ranked in Google highly in the search engines and therefore get the traffic and then get clients. But what tends to happen is when you have a brand new site, there's this time frame for that to kick in. Again, remember, on that search I just did, there were 3 million sites in the running for Counseling Boulder, okay? So it's going to take a while to get there, right? They're not going to just say, hey, you're awesome. We're going to, you know, we've never seen you before, and we're going to rank you up at the top. They aren't going to do that. It takes a while to get assessed, to get seen, to get people to your site, and to have them stay and then bubble up, okay? So what you're going to see here on this chart, the blue line is return on investment. So when you first launch a website, right, it's like, oh, you're all excited, this feels really good, this is great, oh, I'm putting all this content on, all this is good, and then, how come nothing's happening? How come I'm not getting all these phone calls, you know? And it slowly starts building where you really feel like, oh, this was a good investment after all, right? This takes a while. Now, the effort is the red line, okay? So the effort is when you first start, you go up in your effort, right? You're writing, you're designing your site, you're deciding what your niches are, you do all this, and you keep going, you keep writing content, and you finally maybe launch your site, and you're blogging now, and now you're doing social media, and you have Google Places in place, and all this good stuff. And then finally, once you get all that stuff done, you have a little system, your effort starts going down, okay? So that takes a while too. So what I want to show you is actually what that really looks like. okay? So your niche and your clarity and your website planning is in the beginning, and then you start writing really good content. You're doing ongoing blogging. You know, I mean, hopefully what you've done is you've launched your site, you know, by here. And now you're doing ongoing blogging, and now you're optimizing Google Places, and you're doing posting things on social media. You're getting those signals, and you have this whole system in place, okay? And if this looks overwhelming to you, don't be overwhelmed. If you take it one step at a time, which is basically what we guide you through with the Smart Therapy website program, it's not going to be overwhelming, okay? You're going to feel guided through the journey. So don't worry about it if it looks overwhelming to you. But as we mentioned, here's this gap of disappointment, right? This is the part where, gosh, I'm doing all this work and I'm not getting calls yet. This is where we suggest AdWords could really help, okay? Sorry about that. AdWords could really help because you can launch this AdWords campaign, you can start getting traffic right away, and that traffic can carry you through this disappointment, this period where you're not ranking yet. And you can decide at this point here, when things start paying off and you start ranking and getting a lot of organic traffic, whether you want to continue AdWords or whether you want to turn it off. Some people turn it off. They say, I don't need to spend the money anymore. I'm getting enough calls, okay, because of the SEO kicking in. But others say, this is kind of good. Maybe I can have a group practice. I'm getting so many calls. So my SEO is kicking in and my AdWords is kicking in. I want to keep it going. So it's totally up to you, whatever you want to do. AdWords is like installing a faucet, okay? And if you think about that, you need some foundation to install a faucet, right? You can't just install one in thin air. So it takes some effort to install it. Once it's working, you can turn it off. You can turn it on anytime you want. Also, just like a faucet, you only pay when the faucet is on. When it's off, you're not paying Google anything for clicks, okay? When it's on, you are. But before you install a faucet, you need a house, you need a structure, you need a sink, right? There's certain things you need in place. Before you install AdWords, you need a well-planned website with specific messages, which are called landing pages. Okay, and that's basically what we help you with in the Smart Therapy Websites program. So the wrong way to do it is to put up a site like this, and I apologize for whoever's site this is. It's just a typical therapy site that I found on, Psychology Today. You could go out there and click, and pretty much 8 or 9 out of 10 look like this. So it has a welcome page, and it doesn't have much specificity at all, okay? So, it says, thanks for coming to our site and considering counseling and therapy needs with us, and we're calm, gentle, empathetic, and non-judgmental, and blah, 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 right? It doesn't say what they do. It doesn't say they help with depression or anxiety or ADHD or eating disorders or anything like that. The person who comes here, they don't really see exactly what they need, and they bounce. So if this site did show up, which it probably doesn't show up anymore in the search results, if it did show up and somebody went to it, Google is going to say, didn't stay long, let's knock it down further, right? So it's going to keep going down, down, down. That's what you don't want. Whoops, sorry about that. The right way to do it is to have specific pages. And this is just an example from one of our clients. It's a grief counseling page, and it has really in-depth content, right? Really engaging content. And this page goes on and on and on. It has like 700 to 1,000 words, and it captivates the attention of the person who is suffering from grief, okay? So this is the right way to do it. This page will rank in Google because it's specific. This page will keep people on it when they come, and Google will say, great, this is a good page to serve up for grief counseling this town. So let's do this, okay? So this is the right way to do it. So how important is this foundation? Well, to us, it's extremely important, and we do this all the time. We actually won't take your money for an AdWords campaign if you have an ineffective website, okay? Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for you to be spending money, sending money to Google every month when we know that the traffic is going to come to your website and bounce. Why spend money for that? we're going to tell you, hey, we would much rather have you create an effective website. We just turned away a couple last week for this, okay? So if you're unsure as to whether your website is effective or not, and whether it will be effective with an AdWords campaign, then ask me, okay? If you order an AdWords package from us and we think you're not ready, we'll just refund your payment, okay? So just know that. That's how strongly we feel about this. We don't want to waste your money, okay? So the foundation is first. If you still don't have niche clarity, and I don't mean just one niche. What I mean is you can be a generalist, but you know, what are the clear doorways that you're going to hold up to attract people? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it both? Is it couples counseling? Is it all three? Is it ADHD? Is it all four? Whatever. You can have, you know, several, okay? And we suggest no more than 3 to 5 to start with. But if you don't have this niche clarity, and if you still don't have a well-planned site, and if you still don't have specific messaging, one page for each one of those niches, then go ahead and join our Smart Therapy Websites program, okay? You can get all that foundation in place. The biggest mistake that people make with AdWords is not learning about the pitfalls of AdWords. So let's say that you do have all that site foundation in place. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to go launch AdWords. Hey, Google just called me, in fact. So I'm going to, you know, Becky said it's a good thing to do, and Google just called, so I'm going to launch AdWords. Well, hate to tell you, but you got to know how to protect yourself from Google. Okay, what is Google after? They're after you spending as much as possible in click charges, right? That's what they want. They make money if you do that. So they want you to spend a lot in clicks. They're going to try to sell you on AdWords Express, okay? They're going to say to you, hey, AdWords Express is really easy. That other AdWords, that regular AdWords, is really hard to learn. So we can set up AdWords Express for you. It's a piece of cake, and you'll be up and running today, okay? Don't do it because you're going to waste a lot of clicks, and you'll understand why in a minute. With a regular campaign, even if you're doing a regular campaign, we're going to suggest that, hey, you got to modify the campaign defaults. Don't take the defaults that Google gives you. Avoid most of their keyword suggestions, okay? They're really about having you spend money with them, and we don't want you to spend money that's not going to work for you. We want you to only spend money on clicks that are going to convert. So that's the deal. You must also have an extensive negative keyword list, okay? So if you don't have an extensive negative keyword list, ours is 550 to 600 words, then you should not be running AdWords. Don't let Google run the show, okay? You know, some other things for you that know a little bit more: avoid running in the content network. It typically doesn't convert. Avoid their default bids. Avoid their keyword suggestions. Fine-tune the type matches, okay? If you don't know AdWords, all this is going to sound great to you. Control the results of their synonymizing, okay? And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, we take care of it in your campaign. So I'm not going to go into the details of this. But these are, just to let you know, this is a big deal, okay? It's technical and it needs to be done well. All right, so I want to show you an example of Google giving you enough rope to hang yourself. Okay, this is what they'll do. So let's say you have a campaign, you've just created a campaign. Google will come up with these suggestions in your campaign. And they'll say, hey, and this was one of our clients in Canada, okay? Hey, for these 4 ad groups that you have, we have 55 more keywords that could add to your campaigns, okay? If you added these 55 keywords, you would get 900 more impressions per week. And then you would get 15 more clicks per week. And gosh, it would only cost you another $68 per week, okay? This is what they do. They give you these suggestions all the time. But then when you look at the keywords that they're talking about, here's some of them: counseling sessions, counseling for life, children counseling. Maybe that's okay if the guy does children's counseling, but he doesn't. What is family counseling? How to get counseling? All of these are they're more research terms than buying terms, okay? What we really want are terms like counselor, you know, his town, whatever it is, okay? That's what we want. Therapy, his town. He actually does anxiety therapy and depression therapy and some things like that. So for adults only. So this family and children counseling stuff doesn't really work. But they will suggest all of these things and try to sell you on the fact that it's going to help you, and it doesn't really help you. Okay? So this is typical, and you just have to know to be wary of that. You want to also be wary of non-therapist helpers. So AdWords consultants, they're getting, wow, they're just amazing. They're getting more and more aggressive. They call, and even the Google folks, they call and they say, hey, you have a campaign running with us. We've reviewed your campaign and we have some suggestions for you. Give us a call back and we'll talk you through that. Well, we've had a number of clients who call them back and Google says, you should use this, this, and this. Oh, we could do this, this, and this. And then all of a sudden, they're spending twice the money they were spending and getting less results, and they're going, what happened here? I listened to Google and it didn't work. Okay, so you don't want to do that. The worst example I've ever seen, worst example is I saw a guy who had a directory. He had a therapy directory. He was spending $10,000 a month in mostly bad words, bad keywords, okay? He was wasting $10,000 a month in clicks. It was crazy. Just know that it's not only private AdWords consultants, it's Google consultants too. And the obvious traps are terms like free therapy or counseling, sliding scale therapy or counseling, low income therapy or counseling, mental health center type terms, and anything that doesn't apply to you, any type of therapy that doesn't apply to you. A negative keyword list, again, is imperative. Like I said, we use a big one, 550 to 600 negative keywords. Here's an example of not using a strong negative keyword list. So these are clicks that this guy paid for in Canada. He's in Calgary, but he paid for addiction treatment centers, Alberta. He is not a treatment center, okay? He paid for addiction counseling nonprofit. He's not a nonprofit. Focus on the family marriage counselor. Angie Stinson, Calgary. That's not him. Colleges that offer addiction counseling, okay? I mean, on and on and on. Aventa addiction treatment for women, right? All of these things that have nothing to do with him and what he offers. And he was paying for all of this. It was totally crazy. And it goes on and on. You know, when we looked at the clicks he was paying for, it was just like, oh gosh, this is a drag, all right? Now, once we cleaned up his campaign, he was saving $250 a month in those clicks, okay? So he had a skimpy negative list, and that's what the problem was, and some keyword match type issues. So these are the reasons why you don't want to do it yourself or go to someone who doesn't know what they're doing, all right? Okay, let's talk about the niches to avoid with AdWords, because this is a big deal. There are certain niches that have high-priced outsiders driving up the price, okay? And what I mean is, if you're in the divorce or credit counseling niche, you want to avoid that. In divorce, attorneys are going to be bidding on those terms, and they are going to bid a lot of money. So you're going to pay maybe $7 to $8 a click for divorce terms, divorce counseling terms. I know, I used to be in that world, okay? Credit counseling, same thing. You're going to pay a lot because there's those big credit counseling companies, and they're going to just, you know, drive the price up. Addictions and alcohol, there's a lot of treatment centers, and they have a lot of money, and they're going to drive the price up. So I wouldn't run AdWords for those types of things. Weight issues, same thing. There's weight loss centers. There's, you know, eating disorder treatment centers. Okay, all of those types of big entities are going to drive the price up, and you're not going to be able to compete. So don't play there. And if there's anything that's medical oriented, you might be really talented and be able to help people with living with fibromyalgia or something like that. But most likely, there's other people who are going to be in the medical community who have a lot more money driving the price up. So don't play there either. And again, postpartum prenatal issues, it's medically related. They don't tend to perform, okay, if they even run. They just don't tend to perform. We've tried it multiple times, and people don't get clients that way. Now, there are also perfect scenarios for using AdWords, and we're going to talk about that. So here's an example. Let's say you're a Christian sex therapist, okay? That is very specific, and it's very targeted. And when there are people who need sex therapy and they want it from a Christian perspective, they are going to just love that ad, okay? They're going to click on it, and they're going to be a perfect fit for you. So that's a really good thing. Demographic calling cards work great, okay? So if you have Black, African American, Latino, Asian, whatever, those types of things work really well, okay? Because You know, if I'm Latino and there's Latino therapists, I'm going to want that. If I'm Asian, there's an Asian therapist, that might fit really well for me. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to, if you're in one of those demographics, utilize that. Languages are great. Spanish speaking, German speaking, whatever. You know, there's going to be people who definitely want someone who speaks their language. Sexual orientation is a big one. Okay. A lot of people who are lesbian, gay, whatever, questioning, transgendered, they want to go with somebody who is that themselves. Now, there's gay friendly, and then there's whether, you know, really being gay yourself. And so if you're just gay friendly, go ahead and say you're gay friendly. But if you're gay, then, you know, lesbian therapy by a lesbian or something like that, that is really going to help. Okay, people want that. Geo-targeting is really helpful as well. In large cities, you want to target within 5 miles of your office. In small towns, you want to target neighboring towns. Okay, these are perfect scenarios. If you're in a really small town and people already know they're going to have to drive to get services, target neighboring towns. You can do that with AdWords. Again, I talked already about multi-state practices or large geos, okay, where you can go outside of your immediate area. So the ideal scenario is this. You create your site, you create your good specific content, you have your site launched right here. While you're doing ongoing blogging and optimizing Google Places and doing these other things, you can start AdWords running because you can start getting traffic right away, okay? And then you can use it until your organic traffic hits the level that's right for you. Okay, so this is the ideal scenario. So next steps. If you think that AdWords will help you, then really work to get a solid campaign in place. If you aren't trained, get someone who has experience in our field. Of course, we can help. We've been doing this for a long time. Most of you probably know Peter Hanna. Most people have heard of him in the therapy space. He was called the, well, I guess maybe he's still called the Google guy, but he now refers his clients to us, okay? And so he is no longer doing Google AdWords. He was the man for many, many years, and he now refers his clients to us. So for the time being, we're honoring his pricing model. So if you need Google AdWords, come this way. Because we basically bought his business, his Google AdWords business, we have the largest collection that exists of therapist AdWords data in the world. Okay, I'm sure of it, in the world. And this is Peter and I in Seattle. We spent 2 days with him reviewing his secrets to add to our own secrets. And basically, we have an edge because our websites are the best in the industry. So with his secrets for AdWords and our really strong websites, we can just make things rock for you. What does it cost to set up? Well, we have a basic plan, and that is for small towns with little competition. That's $3.99. Okay, so if you're in that boat, $3.99. We have a silver plan. It's our most popular plan. It fits for most of our therapists. Can handle multiple niches and competitive areas. That's normally $7.99, but we're going to have a special, so hold tight on that. We also have a gold plan for multiple offices and group practices. So if you're in that boat, we have that covered as well. That's $11.99. What do you get? You get, I'll just talk to the silver plan because that's the most common plan, but the process is very similar for all of them. At the start, we create your campaign. We make a video for you explaining the whole setup. At 6 weeks, after it's run a bit, we have some data. We fine-tune it. We send you an analysis of the campaign performance after several split tests and adjustments. In 3 months, we make any final adjustments needed, and we send you the final video update, okay? So what you pay for the silver campaign, it's monitored over 3 months and fine-tuned. If this fits what you need, there is a discount, as I mentioned, okay? So for the first 10 therapists who ordered the silver plan, the normal price is $7.99. We're offering it today for $7.49, okay? We can't take any more at that price, but we'll take 10 at that discounted price. And if you want in, if you're in this boat where you're affected by this stuff, just go to counselingwise.com/AdWords, okay? And that's where you're going to be able to get that price, okay? Questions. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I know that you guys have been typing some in, and I'm going to go to those now. We still have 15 minutes, and so we'll be able to answer a lot of questions. So feel free to ask them if you haven't yet. And if you feel that you're just not sure whether this would work for you or not, or whether your website is ready or anything like that, and you feel that you need to speak to me, go to the Counseling Wise homepage, and at the bottom a Let's Talk box will pop up. Go ahead and set time to discuss, okay? And you can get you can schedule yourself in for a half-hour chat with me so that we can talk about your situation and see if this is something that will help you or not, okay? If you're unsure, feel free to do that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk to the questions, and I'll just put that URL there on the screen so that if you want to go there and get one of those 10 spots on AdWords, you can do that. All right, so I'm going to scroll down to where the questions first started coming in, and go ahead and type yours in if you have a question, okay? And so that we can keep going here and not have to wait for them to come in. All right, so the first question, it looks like, is how can you avoid pay-per-click, which is very expensive? And Beth asked that. So I'm assuming you mean, Beth, a certain keyword that is very expensive, or I'm not sure if you mean how do you avoid AdWords altogether. Okay, so here's the deal. Typically, what you want to do is you want to look at AdWords in terms of how much am I spending per month, and is it paying off? Is there a return on investment? So let's imagine that you're paying $300 a month for AdWords. Okay, that's typical. I mean, if you're going to spend less than that, you're probably not going to get very far. Okay, but let's assume you're going to spend $300 a month on pay-per-click. If you get one client who comes to you for 3 visits, you've basically broke even, right? Or 1 month, depending on what your rate is, you've broke even. One client in that whole month, you broke even, okay? If they come and they stay for 4, 5, 6 months, that's like a 1 to 6 return on investment, okay? Assuming you get $300 a month from them. So it's kind of a no-brainer when you start looking at it that way. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to think of it that way. Now, if you're talking about clicks that are just exorbitantly expensive in and of themselves, it's probably because your campaign is set up incorrectly. Okay, so we know how to set it up correctly so that you don't pay through the nose for clicks and you still get good rankings, and that's why you want to do it with somebody who really knows what they're doing. How do AdWords compare to listings like Psychology Today as far as getting clients? Amy, very good question. So here's the deal with Psychology Today. Psychology Today may drive traffic to your site, which is great, but think about it. Psychology Today shows up at the top, well, under the AdWords campaigns, right? So when they go to Psychology Today, what are they doing? I don't know what your town is like, but in Boulder, there's over 200 therapists in Psychology Today. And what are the chances, again, that you're going to be at the top of that? And what are the chances that they're going to read your stuff and stay, right? And go to your website. So the problem with Psychology Today is that if you're showing up there, you're basically in another big room full of 200 therapists, and you have to be found. With AdWords, you get to be found right at the top of the page, and you're not going to get, tons of traffic from AdWords because you don't want to pay tons of money, but you're going to get very targeted traffic. And you definitely are going to get it, okay? So that's how it compares to Psychology Today, Amy. Let's see, Michelle, with geotargeting, is it where the person is searching from? How does the mile radius work? What you specify is, you specify the radius, and what it's saying is it's telling Google if someone searches from this 30-mile radius, because Google senses their IP address. Okay, so it is where they're searching from, then show my ad. Okay, that's how the mile radius works. Now, they could also be, let's say that somebody is in another city, but they're looking for a therapist in your city. They may type in, therapy, your city name, right? And most likely your search will show up there too. But if they just type in therapy, then Google will apply the mile radius, and they have to be within your area. Let's see, Lorelei, does your work completely cover coaching as well as therapy? If your ad campaign is about coaching, then yeah, we put coaching in there. Okay, that will be part of the keyword structure that goes in there. Okay, so basically we could have a coaching campaign and we can have a therapy campaign, if that makes sense for you. I don't know if you do both, but yeah, that's definitely how it works. We would create an ad group for coaching, and we would basically say, hey, for all of these types of coaching terms, show my ad, and have coaching in the ad copy instead of therapy, right? So that it matches with what the person is searching. Okay, so that's how that works. We can totally fine tune that. Gina, what if you spend this money and time and it doesn't work? Well, that's a very good question. I guess there's no guarantees in life. I guess my answer is, if you have a site that is compelling, if you've really done the work on your site, why wouldn't it work? If you can get traffic to your site and it's a good site that's going to engage people, it should work, okay? Very, very, very rarely does it not work. And it's usually because there's something wrong, right? Like you're trying to play in the addictions and it's too expensive, or your site is not good yet, or something like that. And that's why we don't accept those AdWords orders if the site isn't ready, okay? Plus, you can always, I mean, you've paid the money for the AdWords campaign creation, but you could also turn it off, so you don't have to keep spending money. Lorelei, I use the same tools that I use for coaching, also in hiring, selecting great candidates. How easily would you be able to translate to a different field, such as hiring and assessments? Easy. Basically, what we need to know is, what do you want to show up for? What do people search? And so we would talk with you to find out what they search for, and then we would create a campaign there. And then, of course, that campaign is fine-tuned over 3 months. So that's the good news. Okay, we can see how much traffic you're getting, whether it's converting, whether we need to add some more words in there. So it's not just a one-time deal. 4 niches. There's 4 ad groups. How many niches do you cover in the silver package? There's 4. Okay, 4 ad groups in the silver package. And if you go to that AdWords page, you'll be able to see that. Okay. Beth, if you practice in a competitive area and 1,000 therapists have good websites and campaigns, then how do you differentiate yourself? Well, first, Beth, I have never seen a city with 1,000 therapists with good websites. Okay, so let's, I mean, I get your question, and I don't mean to poke fun at your question, but I have seen so many websites, and never have I seen 1,000 therapists in any city, even New York, with good websites. Okay. So what you want to do is, if you're in a really competitive area, let's take New York. That's the most competitive area on the planet, right, for therapists. What you want to do is you want to niche, and you want to be neighborhood specific, okay? So you're going to be Upper West Side or Upper East Side or whatever area it is, and you're going to advertise for that area. You don't want clicks from, downtown if you're in the Upper West Side. I mean, you just don't. So you're going to have to be niched very closely in New York, and if you can be specialty niched as well, that's going to be great. If you're eating disorders, be eating disorders. Don't be a general therapist, okay? So that's the way to be competitive in a big city anyway, is to niche very well, okay? And then with AdWords, you can fine-tune it even more with the geo-targeting. It's great. There are many businesses like Psychology Today, Help Pro, Therapy, Thrive, Wellness, etc. How many of these sites does a therapist need to be affiliated with to get clients? That's an interesting question. I mean, all of those sites, the problem is, and don't get me wrong, I think they're good. I think you should be in a couple of them. But all of them, you're going into a big group again. So you're not going to stand out by yourself. Like I said, in Boulder, there's 200 therapists. I don't know how many in Psychology Today. I don't know how many in Help Pro or Therapy or Thrive or whatever. But you're going to go into the big pool with everyone again. So anything you can do to stand out on your own, you're going to do better. Okay. Amber, I specialize in helping people with co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders in a small rural mountain town with minimal competition. Would Google AdWords help me? I don't know, Amber. I guess the big question is, how are you ranking now? Okay, how are you ranking now? And folks who have co-occurring issues and substance abuse issues, are they Googling? Okay, this is probably the question you need to ask. Now, in that kind of a situation in a really small town, you maybe do better getting referrals, getting a referral network built, and having a really strong site so that the people who are searching would find you. You can always test it too. Okay, the big trick is, what are they searching in, and are they searching? Okay, that's, as you know, that's an interesting, very interesting population. Okay, and are they searching, or are they looking to go to a mental health center type thing? If there's not one in your area that you're competing with, then maybe it'll help. Okay, but that might be something you want to call me on, and we could talk about it and kind of strategize for you, because I would need to know more about what's really happening for you now before I could recommend that AdWords would be an answer for you. Okay, so those are all the questions so far. If you have a question that hasn't been answered, hopefully I didn't miss any, feel free to type it in. We still have a few minutes left, so if you want to type that in, you can, and I'm happy to answer it. And I will hold tight here for a little bit to give you a last chance to type in another question. If you have already typed in your questions, and you have a question that's more strategic in mind, like I said, feel free to go ahead and contact me. I'll go back to that box there, and you can just go to the Counseling Wise page, okay, just to the home page, and then you can ask that question. You can set up time with me, and I'm happy to talk with you. One more question here from Gina. Why it wouldn't work is there are too many people scrambling for the same business. Bottom line is unequal distribution of wealth. It's ruining business for the middle classes. Okay. Well, I guess you get to decide whether you're going to compete in AdWords or not. I know it's going to give you an edge for sure, but that's what I would do. Megan says there's a discount code. Sorry, Megan, I forgot to mention that. So when you go to that page, AdWords, the discount code is AdWords. So put in AdWords and you'll get the discount, okay? So go to the page, counselingwise.com/AdWords, and then type in the discount code of AdWords, and you'll get that discount. And if any of you order and don't get the discount, we will honor it anyway. Okay, we'll go back and refund you $50. Okay, thanks very much for your time, everyone. Any other questions, feel free to type them in. I'll still be around and get them, and I'll answer you. And one more question, Lorelei. Regarding a different field, such as hiring, since you have so many negative words for therapy already, how much work would it be to generate a good list for hiring? Yes, we would have to do that. And the good news is that we can quickly see what's happening in terms of clicks that you're getting. 3 rounds of, well, I would say the first couple of weeks we do more fine-tuning because we watch for stuff to make sure it's running well, and then we do the 6-week and 3-month. So yeah, new field, but I don't think it would be a cost difference. I think we can handle it. But feel free to call me and talk to me about it, okay? So we can get on the same page and make sure that we have a good understanding of what you're looking for. Okay, that's it, folks. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks for coming today. Hopefully this was helpful, and feel free to reach out if you need to. Take care. Bye-bye.